The room was full of power. Crystal chandeliers, designer gowns, the low, polished hum of old money pretending to care about charity. And then he walked in. Adrian Reed. Perfectly tailored suit. Fresh haircut. The kind of slow, deliberate entrance that says, I know you're watching, and I want you to. But it wasn't Adrian that made the room shift. It was the woman on his arm. Young, radiant, draped in a red dress that arrived before she did. His new wife, Serena. And from the way Adrian's eyes moved across the room the moment he stepped through the doors, it was clear he hadn't come for the charity. He hadn't come for the auction. He hadn't even come for the open bar. He came because he knew she would be here. He came because some part of him, the part that never quite healed from how cleanly she left, needed to see her face when he walked in with someone else. He needed to see her hurt. His eyes swept the room. Left, right, past the bar, past the stage. And then he found her, and everything he had planned for this evening died on arrival. Because Vanessa Cole wasn't standing in a corner trying to hold herself together. She was at the center of the room, laughing, effortlessly, genuinely, freely laughing. The way a woman laughs when she has absolutely nothing left to lose and everything left to live for. And the look that crossed Adrian Reed's face in that moment wasn't triumph. It wasn't satisfaction. It was the specific, gut-level devastation of a man who just realized the woman he broke never actually broke. Let me take you back into that room. Let me slow it all the way down. Because this moment, this exact, unrepeatable moment, is the one that every person in that ballroom would later describe differently, but all agree felt like watching something shift in the atmosphere. Vanessa is standing near the grand staircase. Navy gown, not flashy, not trying, just right. The kind of dress that doesn't ask for attention and receives it anyway. Her hair is pinned up, and there's one small diamond at her collarbone catching the light every time she moves. She is mid-sentence with an older gentleman to her left. Her hand is raised slightly, making a point. Her eyes are bright with it. She is completely, utterly present. Not performing presence. Not manufacturing it. Living it. And Adrian is frozen. Literally frozen. 6 feet inside the ballroom entrance. One hand holding 2 champagne glasses he forgot he was carrying. His new wife slightly behind him. Already sensing that something has gone sideways. Not yet sure what. He expected a ghost. He expected the woman he last saw in a lawyer's office 8 months ago. Pale, composed in that brittle way that means someone is barely holding. The woman who looked at him across a mahogany table and said okay when he asked for a divorce, and the quietness of it had unsettled him in ways he never admitted to anyone. He expected the aftermath of what he did to her. He did not expect this. Then it happens. A server passes in front of him, breaking his sightline for exactly 1 second. And when the server moves away, Vanessa has turned. Not toward him, not away from him. She just turned. The way you do when a room breathes differently. Their eyes meet. The ballroom doesn't stop. The string quartet doesn't pause. The waitstaff keeps moving and the conversations keep rolling and the world keeps its indifferent rhythm. But between those two people, in that thin strip of air and history, everything goes still. And Vanessa, she smiles. Not small, not tight, not the controlled, careful expression of a woman managing her reaction. A real smile. Warm, unhurried. The kind of smile that has no subtext because it needs none. The kind of smile that says, I see you, and you mean nothing to me. And I am not even angry about that. 1 second, maybe 2. Then she turns back to her guest, completes her sentence, touches the older man's arm once in the way that says you're funny, and I'm glad I'm talking to you, and continues the conversation as though the moment never happened. As though Adrian Reed were simply another body in a crowded room. As though he were someone she once knew the name of, somewhere, a long time ago. And Adrian stood there, holding 2 glasses of champagne that neither of them would drink. Serena touched his arm. Adrian, you okay? He didn't answer her right away. That was the first crack. To understand what that smile cost, and more importantly, what it meant, you have to go back. All the way back. 12 years. Vanessa Cole met Adrian Reed at a charity auction. Yes, another one. Stay with me. When she was 28 and he was 33. She was a communications strategist with a mind like a scalpel and the rare gift of making powerful people feel understood. He was building a consulting firm from borrowed confidence and genuine hustle. All ambition, all forward motion. The kind of man who makes you believe the dream just by watching him chase it. She believed in him first. Before the clients came. Before the reputation solidified. Before the corner office and the name on the letterhead, and the people who shook his hand in rooms like this one. She believed in him when there was nothing yet to believe in. And Adrian, to his credit, for a time, knew it. You see me clearer than I see myself, he told her once, the night before a pitch that would either save his firm or end it. They were at the kitchen table at 1 a.m., his files spread everywhere, her coffee going cold, and he looked at her across the mess of it and said it like a confession. She had reached across the table and taken his hand. Then look through my eyes tomorrow, she said. I've never once doubted you. He won the pitch. They got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Spring. She wore white and meant it. He cried at the altar. Actually cried. And in the years that followed, when things started to curdle, and she was lying awake at 3 a.m. trying to understand what was happening to them. That image was what she kept returning to. He cried. It meant something once. She was sure of it. The unraveling was quiet. It always is. First it was the phone. He started keeping it face down at dinner. A small thing. A nothing thing. Except it wasn't nothing because he never used to do it. And now he always did. And she noticed the shift the way you notice a sound that's been there for weeks, and suddenly you can't unhear it. Then it was the trips. Longer. More frequent. Cities that changed at the last minute. Atlanta became Miami. Miami became Atlanta. She stopped being able to track which conference was which. Then it was him. He started wearing a new cologne she hadn't bought him. He got a haircut every 2 weeks instead of every month. He was going to the gym at hours he'd never gone to the gym before. And here's the thing about loving someone for 12 years. You know them. You know the exact frequency of them. The specific gravity. The particular way their eyes move when they're hiding something versus when they're tired versus when they're thinking. And Vanessa's body knew before her mind was ready to accept it. Her stomach turned in the car one evening when he took a call and walked out of the room to finish it. Her hands went cold at a dinner party when a woman she didn't recognize touched his shoulder from behind, and he leaned into it. Just slightly, just for a fraction, before catching himself. She started paying attention differently. Not frantically. Not in the paranoid, obsessive way that makes you feel like you're losing your mind. Just watching. Calmly. Carefully. The way a woman watches when she's not ready to know the truth, but is no longer able to pretend she can't feel it approaching. She found the hotel charge in Miami on a month. He told her the conference was in Atlanta. She found the name S in his phone, saved as a restaurant contact, texting after 11 at night asking if he landed safe from a flight Vanessa had never been told he was taking. She found the receipt, tucked into the inside pocket of a jacket he'd asked her to drop at the dry cleaner, from a jewelry store in Coconut Grove. A bracelet, rose gold, not her size. She held that receipt in the kitchen for a long time. The house was completely quiet. She folded it once, very precisely, and placed it back in the pocket exactly as she'd found it. And then she went and made dinner. The night everything became undeniable wasn't in her home. It wasn't quiet or private or on her own terms. It happened at a fundraiser. A Thursday evening. October. That specific kind of October night where the air has just started turning and the world smells like something ending. Vanessa had arrived early to help with setup. She was in a side corridor near the catering entrance, heels in one hand, clipboard in the other, when she heard voices around the corner. Two men, Adrian's associates. The kind of easy, careless conversation that only happens when men believe no one of consequence is listening. Does Vanessa know about the Miami place yet? She stopped walking. She has no idea. He's been running that thing almost 2 years now. Set Serena up with a condo, pays the lease through a dummy LLC. The whole thing. A pause. That's cold. A low laugh. That's Adrian. Silence. And then the clink of glasses. And footsteps walking away. And Vanessa stood in that corridor. Alone. The sound of catering equipment, pans, trolleys, voices calling orders, floated through from the kitchen. She was aware of the clipboard in her hand. Aware of the cold marble under her bare feet. Aware that her breathing had not changed. That her face had not changed. That her hands were perfectly, almost eerily still. The truth had been approaching for months. Now it was simply here. She stood in that corridor for exactly 47 seconds. She counted, without meaning to, the way your brain grabs for something mechanical when everything else is collapsing. 47 seconds. Then she put her heels back on, straightened her dress, and walked back into the event hall. She found her table. She ate dinner. She made conversation with a foundation director on her left and a city councilman on his right. She laughed when laughter was called for. She nodded thoughtfully when the speeches required it. And when Adrian found her at the end of the evening, sliding into the seat beside her with that easy smile and that new cologne, and kissed her cheek and murmured, "You look beautiful tonight." She turned to him with the same warm, steady eyes she had given him for 12 years. "Thank you," she said, and she meant absolutely nothing by it. In the car on the way home, Adrian talked. He talked about a new client, a golf trip, something about his business partner's kitchen renovation. He talked the way people talk when they've decided a version of the conversation and need to fill the air with it. Vanessa looked out the passenger window at the passing streetlights, one after another. She wasn't crying. She wasn't trembling. She was making a list. The first call she made was to Dana. Dana Osei, college roommate, corporate attorney. The woman who, for the past 4 years of their gradual distance, had been leaving voicemails that started with, "I know you're busy being perfect, but call me back," and meaning it. Vanessa called her on a Tuesday morning from a coffee shop 3 miles from home. Not from the house. Not from her phone's default location. From a corner table by the window, cash-paid latte, the kind of specific caution that tells you everything about where her mind had already gone. "I need you," she said when Dana picked up. A beat of silence. Then Dana's voice. No questions, no preamble, no "are you okay" that would have taken up precious time. "I'll clear my schedule." "When?" "Thursday. I'll be there." That was it. That was all it took. Over the weeks that followed, Vanessa moved with a focus so precise it almost looked like peace. She pulled financial records, statements spanning 3 years. She cross-referenced wire transfers against travel receipts, business expenses, and a series of investment filings that had been processed without her signature, which was, Dana later noted with a smile that had nothing warm in it, a problem for Adrian. The shell company wasn't hard to find once you knew where to look. A holding entity registered in Delaware, funded by consistent transfers from their joint account, tied to a luxury property in Miami. $120,000. 18 months. Vanessa printed every page. She organized them into 4 color-coded folders. She stored them at Dana's office, not in their home. Then she went back to being Vanessa Reed, wife, hostess, supporter, like nothing had shifted. She cooked the same dinners, attended the same events, asked the same questions about his day. How was the meeting? Did the Hargrove pitch go well? Do you want red or white tonight? She was flawless. And the whole time, Dana was building something in the background that Adrian had no idea was being built. Then there was the trust. Years before she ever met Adrian, Vanessa's late mother, A woman who had lived long enough to understand that love and legal protection are not the same thing, had established a protected family trust in Vanessa's name alone. The inheritance was airtight, shielded from any marital claim under any jurisdiction they were likely to land in. Adrian knew about the trust. He had always referred to it with the particular dismissiveness of someone who considers a thing irrelevant because it doesn't directly benefit him. Your little trust fund thing, he'd called it once, waving a hand. She had said nothing at the time. She was saying a great deal about it now. 16 months passed. 16 months of perfect, impenetrable stillness. And then came the evening Adrian sat down across from her at the kitchen table with the expression of a man who has rehearsed something and needs to get it out before the courage leaves him. Vanessa. She looked up from her book. I think we both know this hasn't been working for a long time. He paused, giving the words room. I want a divorce. He sat back, waiting for impact, waiting for the trembling lip, the wide eyes. The what? No, please. What did I do wrong? He had his responses ready. She looked at him for a long, unhurried moment. Okay, she said. Just that. One word. Quiet as a door closing. The confusion on his face arrived in stages. First a small blink, then a slight parting of his lips, then the specific blankness of someone whose script has been pulled out from under them and they don't yet know how to improvise. My attorney will be in touch, Vanessa said, and she went upstairs. She did not slam the bedroom door. She closed it softly. The soft close was louder than any slam could have been. The settlement meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Wednesday in November. Gray day, the kind of sky that withholds light without committing to rain. Dana had chosen the conference room herself, neutral ground, a firm neither of them used, 12 floors up with a view of nothing sentimental. Adrian arrived first. He came with 2 attorneys, senior partners, expensive shoes, the kind of men whose handshakes are designed to communicate that you are already losing. He came with a leather portfolio and the specific posture of someone who has been told by multiple people that morning that he has this. He had also, Dana would later note, arrived 7 minutes early, which meant he needed the room before Vanessa got there. He needed to already be seated, already established, already arranged in the space so that when she walked in, she would be walking into his territory. Old tactic. Transparent, once you see it. Vanessa arrived at exactly 9 a.m. She did not rush. She did not apologize for the exact punctuality. She wore charcoal gray, structured, serious, and somehow still graceful. And she set her bag down and took her seat beside Dana without looking at Adrian's team for more than the necessary second of acknowledgement. Good morning, she said. To the room. To no one specifically. Adrian's lead attorney opened. He was smooth. Practiced. He laid out their position the way you lay out a trap, slowly, with apparent reasonableness, so that the teeth are hidden until you've already stepped in. The argument was this. Vanessa had been a dependent in the marriage. A supporter, yes, but not a financial contributor at the level Adrian had been. The trust, they suggested, should be considered in context of the marital estate. Her lifestyle, her standard of living, had been funded by Adrian's professional success. Therefore, Dana let him finish. This was important. Dana always let them finish. There is a specific power in letting someone complete the architecture of an argument they don't yet know is standing on nothing. You let them build. You let them place the final brick. You let them step back and admire it. And then you show them what the ground beneath it is made of. The room was quiet for a moment after Adrian's attorney finished. Vanessa looked at her hands, folded on the table. 1 breath. 2. Then Dana reached into her briefcase. No hurry, no theatrics, and placed a single folder on the table. She slid it forward, not across to Adrian, to his attorney. Whenever you're ready, she said. Adrian's lead attorney opened the folder. The room stayed quiet. He turned the first page, then the second. You could track the moment it registered. Not in anything he said. He was far too trained for that. But in the way he went very, very still. The way a person goes still when their body understands something before their mind is ready to announce it. He turned to the third page. His colleague leaned in slightly, turned back to the second. Adrian, sitting 2 seats down, watched his attorney's face with the growing, nauseating awareness that something was wrong. His jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly, but Vanessa noticed it. She noticed everything. She had always noticed everything. The attorney looked up from the folder. He did not look at Vanessa. He looked at Adrian. And in that look, that single, loaded, professionally controlled look, was an entire conversation. The folder was a shell company registered in Delaware. The folder was $120,000 in marital funds. The folder was a Miami condo. The folder was 18 months of receipts and wire transfers, and one very detailed paper trail that had been assembled by a woman with nothing but time, precision, and a reason. Adrian opened his mouth, closed it. His attorney, to his credit, and because he was expensive enough to know when to stop, said very calmly, "We'll need a recess." "Of course," Vanessa said. She hadn't moved. Her hands were still folded on the table. Her expression hadn't changed. She might have been waiting for a delayed flight, calm, patient, vaguely interested in what came next. They broke. Adrian and his team went to the adjacent room. Through the closed door, Vanessa could hear nothing. That silence was intentional. Those were men regrouping around a truth they couldn't dismiss. Dana poured 2 glasses of water. She slid one to Vanessa. They sat in the quiet for 22 minutes. 22 minutes. Vanessa drank her water, checked nothing on her phone, looked at the gray sky outside, and felt something she would later struggle to name. Not peace exactly, not satisfaction exactly. Something closer to completion. The feeling of a sentence finally ending. When Adrian's team came back into the room, the energy was entirely different. The expensive shoes were the same. The leather portfolio was the same. But the posture was gone. Adrian sat down and did not look at Vanessa directly for the next 40 minutes. He looked at the table, at his attorney, at his hands, once, in a way that looked like a man cataloging what he still had left. The negotiation, if it could still be called that, lasted 2 more sessions over 2 days. But it was never actually a negotiation. You cannot negotiate against documentation. You cannot argue against receipts that have already been verified, against transfers that have already been traced, against a family trust that was never vulnerable to begin with. Each time Adrian's team raised a challenge, Dana placed another page on the table. Patient, methodical, devastating. On the final day, as the agreement was being finalized, Adrian's attorney made one last attempt. A technicality. Something about the timing of a transfer and its classification. Dana let him speak. Then she reached into the folder. There was still more in the folder. There was always still more in the folder, and placed one final document on the table. The room went quiet again. This time, even Adrian's attorney sighed. Not loudly, just a small, professional exhalation of a man who has reached the end of available options and knows it. It was over. Adrian kept the firm. He kept his professional name. He kept the public image he had spent years curating, though it was, by then, considerably more fragile than it appeared from the outside. He was required to repay every dollar of the marital funds he had diverted. Every dollar. The family trust was untouched. Her assets were protected. Her future was entirely, irrevocably her own. Vanessa signed the final document, capped the pen, stood up, smoothed her jacket, that single, composed gesture, and said, "Thank you for your time." To the room. To no one specifically. She did not look at Adrian as she left. Not out of bitterness. She simply had no remaining reason to. There's a specific kind of silence that follows a public fall. Not noisy. Not dramatic. Just a slow, deliberate withdrawal of warmth from people who had previously offered it without question. phone calls that come less frequently, invitations that somehow stop arriving. The particular politeness of people who have quietly revised their opinion of you but aren't prepared to announce it. That silence began closing around Adrian Reed within weeks of the settlement. The people who had known about Serena, and there were more than Vanessa had initially understood, had stayed quiet out of a loyalty to Adrian that was really just comfort. Proximity to power, the ease of not getting involved. But power had shifted, and comfort is a flexible thing. Preston, the man at the dinner table, the one with the loose mouth and the careless grin, sent Vanessa a handwritten note. She read it standing at her kitchen counter, morning coffee in hand. I should have said something. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I am genuinely sorry. She held the note for a moment, placed it in a drawer, and felt, with some surprise, that she didn't need it as much as he needed to send it. She had already moved. Adrian married Serena 3 months after the divorce was finalized. He posted about it. Of course he did, with the curated tenderness of a man writing his own redemption arc in real time. The pictures were beautiful. The caption was something about new chapters. The comments were polite. The silence underneath them was a different thing entirely. Back to the ballroom. Back to this night. 30 minutes after his arrival, Adrian Reed finally crossed the room. He moved through the crowd with the residual confidence of a man who has not yet fully accepted what he has become, parting the space with old habit, expecting the old acknowledgement. Serena was beside him now. Her red dress had lost something in the translation of the evening. Vanessa saw him coming. She finished the story she was telling, laughed at her own punchline, touched her guest's arm once, and then turned to face him with the unhurried ease of a woman who has spent months deciding exactly what this moment would look like. Vanessa. He said her name the way he used to, warmly, as if warmth cost him nothing. Adrian. Not cold, not pointed, just his name in her mouth, returned to him at exactly the temperature it arrived. He smiled, smaller than he'd planned. You look well, he said. He was looking at her very carefully, looking for the thing he'd come to find. The fracture, the effort, the evidence that she had not recovered as cleanly as she appeared. He found nothing, because there was nothing to find. I am, she said. A beat, just long enough. Then, with the gentle finality of a woman closing a book she has already finished reading. Enjoy your evening, Adrian. She turned back to her guests. No performance, no punctuation, no moment designed for the audience watching from across the room. Though several people were watching, and every one of them would remember it. Just a woman returning to her life, and a man standing in the wake of it. Serena touched his arm again. He didn't answer her again. The message came at 11:47 p.m. Vanessa was in her hotel suite. Shoes off. The city spread out beyond the window like a conversation that never stops. She was reading, genuinely reading, not performing calm, but actually inhabiting it, when her phone lit up on the nightstand. Adrian. She set her book face down, picked up the phone. Read it once. I've been thinking about tonight. About a lot of things, honestly. I didn't appreciate your loyalty, your strength, or what you gave to us. I failed you in ways I am still understanding. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I mean that. She read it again. Not to verify, just to let it land completely. Then she set the phone on her knee and looked out at the city for a long time. She thought about the night in October, the cold corridor, the 47 seconds, the way she had put her heels back on and walked back into the room and eaten dinner and said thank you when he called her beautiful and meant nothing by it. She thought about all the versions of this moment she had imagined in the hardest months, the things she had wanted to say, the questions she had wanted answers to, the specific grief of being invisible to someone who once cried at the sight of you. She thought about all of that, and then she picked up the phone and typed, slowly, deliberately, one final time. Thank you for saying this, Adrian. I hope it brings you some peace. I learned more about myself in these past 2 years than in the 12 before them, and for that, I'm genuinely grateful. I wish you and Serena well. Take care of yourself." She read it back once, sent it, turned the phone face down on the nightstand, picked up her book, and that was the last word she ever gave him. Not because she was punishing him, but because she was finished. 3 months later, the new office had large windows. That was the first thing Vanessa had specified when she started looking for a space. Large windows, natural light, room to breathe. Her firm was small, for people, for now, built entirely on her terms, using a mind she had spent 12 years lending to someone else's vision and was now, finally, applying to her own. Dana came to the soft launch on a Thursday evening. They sat at a small table near the window. Coffee, late light, the easy quiet of two women who have been through something together and come out the other side still themselves. Dana looked around the office, at the small framed print on the wall that Vanessa had chosen herself, at the clean desk with no photographs she hadn't chosen to put there, at the woman sitting across from her who looked, somehow, more like herself at 40 than she had at 28. "Can I tell you something?" Dana said. Always. The most impressive thing, through all of it, wasn't the documentation. It wasn't even the settlement. She paused. It's that you never stopped being kind. You never turned cold. You never became what he deserved you to become. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Outside, a bus passed. Someone on the street below laughed at something. The city kept its indifferent, beautiful rhythm. "I didn't stay kind for him," Vanessa said finally. "I stayed kind because I knew that whoever I was on the other side of all this would be the most important person I'd ever have to live with." She looked down at her coffee. "He took enough from me. I wasn't going to let him take that too." Dana nodded. Didn't say anything. Because some things don't need an answer. They just need to be witnessed. Outside, the light was doing what late light does in autumn, going golden and long and a little heartbreaking, the way it makes everything look like it matters. Which, Vanessa thought, it does. She looked out the window and smiled. Not for Dana. Not for the room. Not for anyone who might walk by and wonder what she was thinking. Just because she was here. Just because this window was hers. Just because she had come through something that was designed to diminish her and had arrived, somehow more. There is a version of this story where Vanessa breaks. Where she sends the 2 a.m. messages. Where she makes the phone calls he won't pick up. Where she sits in the parking lot of his office and watches who he walks out with. And each time she does it, it takes a little more of her with it. Where she lets the grief hollow her out and the bitterness fill the hollow. A lot of women live that version. Not because they're weak. Not because they're wrong. But because they were given pain and no instructions. Because the world tells you to fight or to fall apart. And it doesn't often leave room for the third option. The hardest option. To go quiet. To go still. To prepare. Vanessa Cole found that option in a cold corridor in October with 47 seconds and both heels on the ground. And what she built in the silence that followed wasn't revenge. It was a life, a document, a trust, a folder, a firm, a window with good light. All of it assembled in the steady, invisible hours that Adrian never thought to account for, because he never fully believed she was capable of them. That was his fundamental mistake. Not the affair, not the money, not the condo in Miami or the woman in the red dress or the social media posts about new chapters. The mistake was simpler and older and more expensive than all of those things combined. He underestimated her, and she let him, right up until the moment it was time to stop. She didn't win by screaming. She didn't win by breaking. She didn't win by becoming the cold, untouchable version of herself that betrayal sometimes manufactures in women who've been pushed too far. She won by deciding, quietly, completely, in a corridor with clanging pots and a clipboard in her hand, that she was worth more than the story he had written for her. And then she went and proved it. One document at a time. One page at a time. One okay at a time. And in the end, The most devastating thing she ever did to Adrian Reed wasn't the settlement or the evidence or the 2-day negotiation that stripped him of everything he thought he'd secured. It was that smile. In the ballroom. Effortless. Real. Completely free. The smile of a woman who had healed so thoroughly, so quietly, so entirely on her own time, that when the person who broke her finally came looking for the damage, there was nothing left to find. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who should have known better, share this story with someone who needs it tonight. And if you believe that the quietest kind of strength is the kind that survives everything, subscribe, because there are more stories like this one. And every single one of them is about someone like you. For the women who chose preparation over performance. For the ones who stayed kind, not for him, but for themselves. For everyone who ever said, okay, when they meant everything. And meant it.